Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Are you all able to see the screen as well?
I can hear you.
Okay, give me 1 second here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I can hear, I can't see I get to see everyone's lovely names and faces, but no screen.
You're a good one. We can see it.
Awesome. Okay, sorry about that. Just trying to get it together here. Well, welcome everyone to the Homelessness Task Force. Today is June 24th. Thanks everyone for taking time out to join us today. I will be the host and replace Director Tamika Laird. There are 3 co-chairs for the Homeless Task Force. It's Director Laird with Office of Resilience and Community Services. Natalie Harris, the Executive Director for Coalition for the Homeless. Natalie is on the call today. And Mary Frances Schaefer with the Director of Community Coordination of Coalition for the Homeless. Just to go over a couple of rules here, we just want to always remind everyone to be respectful. Participants will be on mute, but we encourage you to put any comments or questions into the chat box. Today, we will go over some community updates and also provide some education and updates around 3 different topics that I will cover here in just a second. And there will be time for everyone to ask questions and we'll provide an answer. If the appropriate person is not present today, we will make sure you receive that answer in a respectful time frame. The presentation is being recorded for public purposes, and let's go ahead and move forward and get started. Today, the continuum of care, a single point of entry, will start off the presentation, also common assessment. Then we will move into the outreach area with St. John's. We have a shelter capital project update, and then we'll do the committee report outs. And then that's when we'll go to next steps and hoppers and any Q&A. I believe we have Dr. Carrie Addison on the call today, as well as Ms. Ashley Talbert that will cover the single point of entry and the common assessment team. Please feel free to join in now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ashley Tabor. I'm a prevention and diversion coordinator with the Coalition for the Homeless. And
I'm sorry, we can't hear you, Ashley.
I can hear you actually. I think you just have to speak up a little bit. Okay, can you hear me now?
It's a little better. You still sound like you're kind of way far away from the microphone.
Okay. Well, I'm on my laptop here and I'm doing the best I can with what I have. So I don't know. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. It's good.
Okay. Okay. So like I was saying, my name is Ashley and I am a prevention and diversion coordinator with the Coalition for the Homeless. And I'm going to talk to you all about some of the services that we offer through our single point of entry office. So some of the things that we do are make emergency shelter bed reservations. We have a prevention and diversion program. We also have a housing navigation program, and we make referrals to other partner agencies in our service network when we are unable to assist with certain needs. So the prevention piece of our program is targeted to, so if you could put on the next slide, please. So the prevention piece of that program is targeted to individuals and families who currently have housing but are at risk of homelessness. A lot of people tend to think that when they hear the word prevention that it is a financial or rent assistance program, but it is neither of those things. What the prevention assistance includes is some solutions-based case management. So, and that's on the next slide. So this solutions-based case management is kind of digging a little deeper into the client situation to try and identify some, maybe non-traditional solutions to assist with their unique situations. We also offer landlord and tenant mediation. We can give some housing advice. And then we connect them to community resources that might be able to assist financially. We also can connect the client to legal services, such as those provided by the Legal Aid Society that kind of advocate for and educate them on their rights. We can also connect them to resources that assist with things like credit repair, employment, etc. Next slide, please. So diversion, what we do for this piece, this means keeping individuals and families from entering emergency shelters or sleeping in places not meant for human habitation. So these are targeted to those who have already lost their own housing, are doubled up, and are running out of places to stay. So we kind of offer some solutions-based case management in this diversion piece as well. And on the next slide, it kind of delves into that a little more. So we will help with housing search. We do some conflict mediation. We will connect them to emergency shelter services if needed. We also connect them to other community assistance programs and things that can help them obtain services and public assistance benefits. So moving on to our housing navigation program. So what this does is coordinates relocation and long-term stabilization services. It provides housing search and placement services, identifies housing options, assist with like the housing application and interview process. This is also short-term case management. And through this program, we are also able to offer security deposit and up to 2 months of rental assistance for those that are eligible. And so how you would connect someone to these services is to have them contact our single point of entry office. We can be reached 7 days a week by phone from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And that number listed here is the 502-637-2337 number. Or you can also reach out to us through our email account at spe@luhomeless.org.
Thank you, Ashley. Next is our common assessment team, and we have Dr. Carrie Addison on the call.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Thumbs up. Okay, good. So I'm Carrie Addison, and I work at Family Health Centers Phoenix and lead the common assessment team. Those are some of our lovely team members at Project Stand down in the photo. We go on to the next slide, please. So just real quick, so Ashley talked about what single point of entry does, and I always start out by distinguishing what makes this different. Single point of entry is largely an emergency service, so they handle the emergency shelter bed. Common assessment is not so much an emergency service, but I like to think of us as more of the long-term plan. So the single point of entry in the emergency shelter helps figure out where you're going to stay tonight. The common assessment team's job is more about finding out how to get you out of homelessness in the long term. So we do that by doing assessments in outreach-based settings in streets and in emergency shelters and over the phone now. And we use that information to help facilitate referrals through the continuum of cares, rapid rehousing, transitional housing, and PSH programs. And I'll also talk about the fact that we also do some navigation to mainstream housing resources as well. So just really quickly, the composition of the team. I serve as the coordinator. My primary functions are to supervise the outreach team to make sure they're covering the areas they should be and they're following best practices. I aggregate all the data that goes into HMIS and pull that into reports that we can use to track clients and make referrals. I manage all the referrals with agencies. We have 3 case managers, Rachel Spitz, Monica Jackson, and John Curry, who go out to drop-in centers, shelters, and camps and do the common assessment with clients and work on making follow-up plans with them and help them with a lot of other needs that may come up as well. We have 2 housing navigators, Teresa Richardson and Matthew Howard, who mostly work in the shelters with lower vulnerability individuals that we know are not likely to get COC housing or may get some other form of subsidized housing quicker. So they work to help them with identifying housing programs out there for different populations and helping them with paperwork and application processes, communication, and all of that. We have 3 peer support specialists, Lisa Bauer, Lindsay Rice, and Tyler Triplett. They're all individuals that have experienced some form of homelessness and recovery as well. So they work really well with knowing where our clients have been and can kind of help relate to them. They serve a variety of different needs, including helping out with street outreach, helping explain forms and processes to people, answering the phones and just walking through the process, helping us keep track of people. We do have a licensed clinical social worker on our team, Jeff Elmore, and that's really valuable because he helps reach people that need behavioral health services that may not be able or willing to engage in a more traditional clinical setting, like coming into our clinic. So he can help make referrals to those services or even provide therapy as part of the process. He's also a big help in the fact that the COC requires a documented disability to get into permanent supportive housing programs. So that can be challenging for people that are not engaging in care. And he helps fill a gap by being able to do that documentation for people that he works with in the field. And then we currently have 3 interns. We pretty much always have at least 2 at a time from usually Kent School, but other colleges as well. We have a U of L medical student, Keith Mentzer, with us this summer, and we also have a Berea public health student working with us as well. Next slide, please. So the most common question we get is how to access Common Assessment. How do we get to them? I always stress we're an outreach-based team. We want to meet people where they are. We do regular outreach to encampments. I think I have the word prominent in the presentation because we tend to, like a lot of groups, hit the most populated and well-known the most. But we're also willing to go out to the others. We get a lot of call-ins about, smaller encampments or even a single person, going out to look for them. We do outreach to shelters regularly. We put out a schedule every month of where to find us. We hit most of the major shelters either every week or every other week. If you would like that schedule and you're not receiving it, if you'll remind me, I'll put my email in the chat box and I'd be glad to add you to the distribution list to that. And we're also available by telephone, and that's been a change since COVID started. When we began, we did not do telephone assessments, but people walked into our office. We had to close the office to walk-ins during COVID, and to make up for that, we started doing telephone assessment as well. In addition to that, so we're available Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Clients can call in to us at any time. Our phones do stay really busy, and we only have one line, so we understand and apologize. It can be hard to get up with us during those hours, but please just, if you're advising someone to reach us, please keep trying. And our office will probably be back open again for walk-ins sometime in the fall as we continue to become a little bit more normal in our old routines again. Next slide, please. So how does all of this assessment and prioritization work? As I said, we identify people that are staying out in the shelters. We do the VI-SPDAT and family VI-SPDAT tools with them. For anyone not familiar, that's Vulnerability Index Service Prioritization Decision Assistance Tool. The tool is really designed to look at people that are street homelessness and identify what factors that are putting them at most risk and produce a score that basically represents how likely they are to die on the streets. And we use that score as one of the tools to help prioritize people for housing resources within the COC. We also, eligibility dictates a lot of those referrals we make. So COC grants often require individuals to be chronically homeless. So we work on them determining if they're chronically homeless and how we can get that information. We work with agencies like Wellspring, who serve people with severe mental illness, and House of Ruth, that serves people with HIV and AIDS. So we help clients get the documentation of those things that prove they're eligible to those programs. And then when agencies that receive funding within the COC have openings in their programs, then we're able to make referrals to them based on who is most vulnerable. And then we also try to serve as kind of a bridge to help people connect to the new agency. So we assign a case manager or outreach worker from our team that's worked with them, or maybe even one of the other outreach teams like St. John's, but they're really familiar with the person, to help introduce that person to their new case manager and help them get engaged in the housing process. And then again, like I said, we do have a lot of clients who are not getting referred to COC programs, either because they're not eligible or just because there are not enough openings. So we try to help do housing navigation work with them to find out if there are other housing resources outside of the COC that may be able to help them. Next slide, please. For anyone that's visual, and this is really hard to read, but it's basically just a triage of how this works. And just a reminder that our purpose is hopefully to streamline the system so people aren't going from agency to agency trying to figure out what they're eligible for and what they need to do. So anybody can reach us through outreach, through the phone, through referral from a hospital. And the key question that we usually ask is, where are you currently staying? Because that helps us determine how we're able to help them. If they're staying in a place not meant for habitation, or they're staying in a shelter, or they're fleeing a domestic violence situation, then we move through the common assessment process. If they're not in those situations, if maybe they're just in their house, but it's unstable or something like that, we refer them to single point of entry, and prevention and diversion is the most appropriate step. Just the third column is just walking kind of through what we expect as far as eligibility and how we use the scores to determine that. The VSPDAT says people scoring 8 and above are appropriate for permanent supportive housing. So we usually start from the top down. And then, like I said, just program eligibility dictates a lot of that too. So we're helping people with the top scores figure out which programs they're eligible for. Scores in the middle range are recommended for rapid rehousing and transitional housing programs. We have a lot of those for families, usually homeless families in that score range. We're usually able to get in pretty easily. Singles, there are not as many opportunities for singles unless they're young adults. So we work with them a lot of times on mainstream housing, and the same with people that are scoring at the very lowest end, usually people scoring below 4 on the VSPDAT. Next slide, please. So just real quick, here's a listing of the agencies that provide permanent supportive housing. They focus on singles, they focus on families. Like I said, they focus on specific subpopulations, like some people serve people living with HIV and AIDS. Some serve people living with mental illness. Some, like the Wayside program, focus more on senior and disabled adults that have more intensive care needs. To get into a permanent supportive housing program, at least one member of the household has to have a disability documented by the form the COC publishes that basically says they have either a substance use disorder, mental health condition, developmental disability, chronic health condition or / physical impairment, or HIV AIDS, and that is impairing them from both being housed and reaching optimal wellness in other ways, and that supportive services and housing can benefit them. So that's a big thing we have to get people into those programs. And then again, a lot of them are designated for chronically homeless people. So that's disabled individuals that have also been homeless for over 12 months. So we help them a lot with that documentation as well. Next slide. We work with a smaller number of rapid rehousing and transitional housing programs, but that has grown over the years. Like I said, that kind of helps fill the middle range. There are especially opportunities out there for young adults in the 18 to 24-year-old age range, domestic violence victims and survivors, and families with children, singles not as much. All you have to have for eligibility to these programs is to meet HUD's definition of homelessness, either category 1 or 4, category 2 if you're a young adult and getting into a YHDP program. Next slide. And then just some of the other resources we do. So when we say we do housing navigation and mainstream housing, here are some of the avenues we're helping people find out. We're helping connect them to housing authorities. LMHA is a great partner. They've given us a lot of preferences and set-asides to help homeless individuals get housed either through public housing or Section 8. We even utilize the Indiana County Housing Authority. Sometimes if folks want to be housed there, we'll help them through those processes. We help them find other income-based housing, especially there's a lot of senior subsidized housing opportunities out there in the community that we help connect them to. We do our housing navigator updates a list of market rate apartments every week, which can both help people that maybe have a voucher that are struggling to use it to find a place that accepts that, or to help people that are working and just kind of struggling to know where to go or to find somewhere that'll work with their history to find a place. We do help people sometimes with rooming houses if that's the only option. That's not our client's favorite preference or ours, either one, but that is a resource we can help people, especially with low incomes that aren't eligible for anything else, find. Next slide, please. So with those resources, this slide, next to last slide is just kind of a snapshot of how many people we serve and how we serve them. In 2020, we served 1,477 households. Nearly 1,200 of those were singles and the rest were families with children. We were able to house 487 of those, so it's a lot, but still only a fraction of the people we saw. About 104 of those went to permanent supportive housing. 209 went to rapid rehousing, transitional housing, and a lot of that was because with the CARES Act and other COVID funding, there were a lot of opportunities for rapid rehousing that we haven't had in previous years, and we're not certain if we will have in the future. 137 went to LMHA or some other kind of federally subsidized housing. A lot of that was because LMHA really stepped up with COVID and gave preferences to homeless individuals. And then we helped about 37 others find, various other kinds of housing. It may have been a nursing home or assisted living facility or rooming house. We currently have 1,024 active households on our list. So those are people that have completed the VSPDAT and they've had some engagement with homeless services in the last 90 days. And that's kind of the base we're working off of. So whenever there's an opening in a permanent supportive housing or other program, that's wonderful that we have it, but we're pulling from like a whole universe of over 1,000 people usually to fill that spot. Next slide. And finally, I just wanted to talk about some gaps that we have in services and our needs. Of course, we always say there's just not enough housing out there, but there's also definitely certain types, even with permanent supportive housing and the services that entails. We often run into situations where we have individuals with really high acuity needs, like either related to chronic medical conditions, mobility impairments, having severe and persistent mental illness that may not be treated. As the homeless population ages, we're seeing more dementia and impaired cognitive functions, and even just people with poor rental histories or that have been in a lot of other housing programs. Finding a good fit for them and finding a level of intensity of services that sometimes does not exist out there makes it very difficult. Opportunities for housing that are flexible for people with child custody challenges is also a big struggle for us, because it's kind of a chicken and egg situation where we have mother come to us that doesn't have custody of her children, and the court says you can't have your children until you have a home to put them in, and then housing programs saying, well, you have to have a family to get a family-sized unit. So, helping work with them and working with the court and like being flexible with that can be really tough in meeting needs as well. Registered sex offenders are an extremely difficult population to serve. We only have a very small number of programs that are even able to work with them, because no program that's directly government funded can house them. Only our nonprofit agencies do, and then some of those agencies have campus housing with children that live nearby, or they have other safety concerns, especially if the offense was of a violent nature or maybe not that old. But those individuals are still out there and they're homeless. And because they're not able to get in to a lot of our shelters or get into house, they're often breaking their registry agreement just because they have nowhere else to go. Rapid rehousing for single adults. Like I said, we've prioritized that for families, but we just don't have a lot of places to refer single adults with lower VASPADAT scores that are not disabled. And ongoing subsidies as well, especially with rapid rehousing for families. We find a lot of times when that rapid rehousing assistance ends, the family may be struggling a lot because it may be a parent with 3 or 4 children. And to rent a 3 or 4 bedroom unit in Louisville often is really expensive and hard to achieve, even if you're working a full-time job. So those are just some of the biggest challenges that we face and gaps that I always ask the community to think about as they look at how much they need to fund new projects and what kind of projects they need to support. I think that's all of the slides that I have today. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Addison. Before we move on to St. John's, Natalie, I just wanted to back up a little bit. Was there any comments you would like to make before we move forward? I apologize. I should have allowed you to speak in the welcoming.
No, that's great. I thought you did a great job. So thank you very much. I am so impressed with the number of people on this call, because as Juan knows, it seemed like every single person in the city was on vacation today. So
Yes.
we're happy to have you here. Those few of you who didn't get to go on vacation this week. It's a really full agenda, so I'll just let us move on and thank you for your support.
Thank you, Natalie. And moving forward with St. John with professional outreach, we have TJ Martin and Tiny Haran on the call.
I'm about to go on vacation, so I'm gonna let Tiny go first.
Thanks, TJ. I'm Tiny Heron. I'm with the St. John Center Street Outreach Team. So we were just going to give a very brief presentation on how our outreach team is managed. I'll start out with our mission statement. The team kind of came together in the beginning of putting this team together and worked on a mission statement and then trying to define exactly what we wanted to do and who we wanted to engage with. So our mission statement is we collaborate with people experiencing homelessness to advocate, educate, navigate, and connect to community partners. We use client-centered interventions to empower them to leave homelessness. You can move on to the next slide. So trying to get a feel for like the difference of the different outreach teams. For a long time, there's been a lot of like community organizations, church-based, faith-based type organizations, volunteer groups that do outreach. So when a professional team stepped on the field, we kind of just put our heads together and kind of put it together as we began as a team. We knew what we wanted to accomplish, but because we're fairly new, we got started at the beginning of 2019. So things have changed a whole lot. We take away some things, we add some things, and just kind of adjust into the need of the community and our community partners. But to get a good understanding of street outreach, this is just the definition of street outreach. Street outreach efforts are systematic, coordinated, and comprehensive. It is important to remember that street outreach is conducted on behalf of the community rather than one agency, requiring collaboration among multiple stakeholders. Knowledge of and engagement with all partners implementing street outreach efforts leads to a more strategic use of resources and more comprehensive coverage and identification of all people experiencing unsheltered homelessness. Street outreach efforts are also coordinated with a broader network of programs, services, or staff who are likely to encounter individuals experiencing unsheltered homelessness, but whose regular focus is broader than homelessness. This might include law enforcement and other first responders, hospitals, health, behavioral health care providers, child welfare agencies, homeless education liaisons, workforce systems, faith-based organizations, and other community-based providers. You can move to the next slide. There was a recent training that our team did that was presented by OrgCode, and OrgCode gave two different approaches, two different type of outreach teams, and I just loved it. So I have those on the slides here, so you can kind of see the difference between like a volunteer outreach group or a professional outreach team. Approach one is contact driven. Meeting basic needs, providing human contact, sometimes provide transportation to services. Often is lower paid positions, like entry-level positions. Approach one has a great response to immediate needs. And I know that from doing volunteer outreach in the community for about 20 years. You know, you jump in there and you want to meet a need. So a lot of these volunteer outreach groups might get phone calls, you know, all night long, like, we're out of water at our camp. Can somebody bring us some water or something like that? The engagement with large volumes of unsheltered persons. So when those of you that know about some of our encampments here, if you think about like Mercer Camp, that to me is a very overserved camp with a lot of volunteer groups that go into that camp, as well as the professional teams that we have in our city. Approach one teams are more often highly visible. You'll see them out in large groups or large settings, setting up underneath the viaduct, serving a meal, passing out supplies. They can struggle with meeting the needs of people with complex and co-occurring issues. And that could be just because these are people that are good-hearted and they're just getting out there wanting to do something. So sandwiches and conversation. But they don't really know what to do with the next step, especially if it's someone with like substance use disorder or some severe mental illness. Approach one can struggle to have the time and does not have the skills to navigate people through the process of getting housed. So while there's these great outreach teams in the community, they don't understand all the processes that are in place. I used to say all the time, Louisville is a great resource. We have so many resources for the homeless in our community. But why are those not getting tapped into? So a large piece of moving into a professional outreach team is getting people connected to those resources, understanding the process of housing. I can't tell you how many times I get phone calls from volunteer groups, even my own volunteer group, where people are calling me saying, well, why isn't such and such housed yet? You know, they've been out here for so long. And I'm like, well, have they done a common assessment? Have they had the disability verification done? Just somebody not understanding the process that it takes to get into housing. And outcomes with approach one is usually measured by how busy the outreach workers are. You can move to the next slide. Approach two is intensive and assertive, has a housing focus with a smaller group of people. The team is usually more experienced with education or training. It's not entry-level positions for the team. We could struggle to provide a more immediate response. We're more focused on engagement for the long game, long term. Approach two can struggle with how to support people while waiting on the other parts of the systems to make decisions. I know I personally struggle with that a lot on my team. It's like you can walk a person through all the steps and then we're just kind of waiting on that next step, and it gets a little frustrating sometimes. Approach two is very deliberate in deciding who to engage with and why, and not always highly visible. Approach two type of outreach does not travel in large packs in 5 cars in an encampment with 10 people in the camp walking around. Very capable of effectively working with people with higher acuity and complex needs. And the effectiveness is measured by how many people have positive exits from homelessness. So that's a very big difference between approach one and approach two. You can move to the next slide. I like to say that St. John's team is best described as approach two with a little bit of hint of approach one. We have a team of 6 individuals. We have 2 certified peer supports on our team. So they bring a great skill set to our team because they are individuals that have lived experience. So kind of how our team does, um, on any given day. We start out our morning, we will huddle with the entire shelter staff to kind of get a pulse on our guys that are coming into the shelter, what happened the day before, anyone we need to get a message to, if we know of community partners reaching out to. And then from there, we meet just as an outreach team. And we do that every single morning. And as we do that, we go through all of our requests from the community, whether that's the Metro 311 calls, it can be requests from just concerned citizens, lots of community partners. We now have a very good working relationship with Norton Psychiatric Services. So when they get someone admitted to their unit that is homeless, they will call us to come over. And I've been super impressed with their social work staff who now know how to call the common assessment, now know how to call the bed line. So they're able to do a lot of the things that we were having to do when we were going over there. We also have a good working relationship with U of L ER, the social work team there. If they have someone in the ER that's experiencing homelessness, and they're worried about them being discharged to the streets or something, they'll have us come over and meet with that individual. So originally we were asked to like kind of get together a schedule or a monthly agenda and try to collaborate with other outreach teams. And this is just kind of a reason why we don't have like a written schedule, because we don't know from day to day what our next day is going to be like. Some of our work today would be follow up with some of the individuals that we engaged with the day before. We do soft handoffs on everything. We are not about, here's a phone number for Phoenix, call and get an appointment. We call with the client, we get the appointment scheduled, we have it in our planner. We make sure that we follow up with that client if they want our assistance to get them and take them to an appointment. So we don't do a lot of, here's this information, now you navigate it. We help navigate through the system. You can do the next slide. I think TJ is going to talk about our outcomes.
Okay, thank you, Tiny. During the reporting period of January 1st, 2021 through March 31st, the outreach team served nearly 540 individual clients and families and provided more than 970 services. We're currently working on the last quarter data, which is a lot of people and a lot of services for only 5 people to be doing, because well, at that time we had 6. So, but that's still a lot of service, but it's still a lot more work that needs to be done. Of course, the outreach team continues to respond to the Metro 311 calls and concerned citizens. We continue to do that. Outreach has assisted with several encampment cleanings by the Metro Sanitation. So when we know that there's going to be a cleaning or clearing, we try to be on the scene as well to help navigate our clients through that. And then since March of 2021, Outreach has assisted in getting 32 individuals housed. I feel like we're doing the work, but I know there's still more work to be done, and we're just trying to be on the front lines. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiny and TJ. Moving on to the shelter capital project updates with Dr. Andy Bates with Resilience and Community Services.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. So this is just a quick update about some of the capital projects that are being funded with the CARES Act money that was received last summer at the start of the pandemic. So as the senior leaders in the Coalition for the Homeless and Louisville Metro, we're looking at the all the funding that we received in response to the pandemic. Some of that money was spent to provide services in like a surge of resources. But one thing we wanted to do was to take the opportunity to invest in some of our infrastructure for serving the homeless. A lot of agencies will have deferred maintenance, and a lot of the necessary rehab on our facilities gets neglected because a lot of our usual funding can't cover those kinds of costs. So we wanted to take the opportunity to do some capital projects with this funding. So as a part of the action plan amendment that was approved last summer, there was $1.7 million that was identified for capital projects with Salvation Army. And then there was $1.3 million that was set aside for additional capital projects that would be determined through a competitive RFP process. So that competitive RFP was conducted a few months ago, and the Coalition for the Homeless, Develop Louisville, and Resilience and Community Services helped to review those applications. Now, unfortunately, we only got 3 applications from agencies to receive this capital funding. And those were 2 applications from Wayside and 1 application from St. John Center. And so the amount that was requested was actually less than the funding that was available for capital projects. Nevertheless, the panel still looked through the projects to ensure that they were worthwhile, and all 3 projects were approved to receive the full funding that they requested. So briefly, one of those projects is at Wayside's main campus, where they are expanding the single women's shelter and doing some other minor capital project rehab. The other project is at Hotel Louisville, where they are basically replacing their 3 elevators, which are all aging and in need of being fixed. And then the last project was for St. John Center, where they had a variety of upgrades, basically to improve security. They've suffered some vandalism and some other increased risks that they wanted to work on with some, cameras and other things of that nature. So all 3 of these projects were approved. Now, here in Resilience and Community Services, handling capital projects is not really in our usual responsibilities. That's not really our expertise. Develop Louisville, they're more accustomed to dealing with capital projects, and so they agreed to administer these projects once they were identified. So now that the RFP has been conducted, Develop Louisville is working with these grantees to get the actual construction contractors who will be doing the work and handling the whole process. They have until the end of 2023 for the work to be completed and the funds to be expended. So that's still a little bit of time. Probably one thing we all keep in mind is, as we all know, construction costs have gone up lately. And so that is a possible risk to some of these projects as construction costs continue to rise. Another note I'd like to add is that after Wayside submitted its proposal for their main campus for the single women's shelter, some of the leadership of this task force did a tour of Wayside, and after discussing it with the Wayside leadership, they recommended that project be expanded to include some other specific upgrades and rehab to the Wayside facility. And so Develop Louisville was asked to incorporate those into that rehab project at the main campus. Though the exact amount that those would cost had not been identified at that point. So Develop Louisville is handling these now. I tried to get an update, but unfortunately, Kevin Sullivan, who's been taking the lead on these, is on vacation this week. And so I was not able to get a very specific update on exactly where each one of these projects stand, but I'm sure we'll get updates as they proceed. I'm able to take any questions that you might have, though, like I said, since we've handed these off to Develop Louisville, I'm not sure how much specific detail I can provide on their current status.
Andy, this is Marilyn, and I'm the director. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the director of the Office of Housing, and the grant agreements have been drafted, and I believe they have been sent out for 2, but not the 3rd one, the one that we're recommending additional funding. I think we're still waiting on something on that one, but We are moving these right along and we'll get them started just as soon as possible. They do have to go through, the environmental review process before we can release those funds. So I said the grant agreements, I should say the commitment, the commitment letter, the congratulations, you've been funded letters have gone out. And so it's starting on we have to go through the environmental review process. That doesn't take long because they are rehabs of existing properties, but it still is a process that we have to undertake. We have to post it for a certain period of time in a public place, blah, 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 but we are moving right along on these.
Thanks, Marilyn.
Also,
Um,
Andy, did you see the question in the chat? I do know that the renovation of the women's and family space at Wayside added additional units for homeless families, but I don't know how much, and that would, how many additional families will be able to be served, and that was the question.
Yeah, I see the question. It's a great question, and I wish people would ask this question about all our projects. You know, how many people will this rehouse? So the first thing I'll say is that the Wayside Single Women's Shelter expansion is going to, I don't have the number of units at hand, but it is going to provide opportunity to shelter additional single women and some additional families, because as they shift the space around, some of the, you know, as they move the single women's space to a new area, that's going to free up additional spaces for families as well. Now that one is not to house them, but to shelter them.
Andrew, I
terms
can
of-
actually answer that question if you want
Mhm.
the answer.
Yes, please.
It will increase the single women's shelter capacity from its current maximum of 18 individuals to 32 individuals nightly. And by moving the single women away from the family emergency shelter floor, the project will also create space for 6 new households with children.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate, that's exactly what I was looking for. So then, but that is not, those aren't being housed, they're being sheltered. Now the Wayside elevator rehab, you know, this is about maintaining our existing capacity, because of course, if all 3 of those elevators quit working, then we lose all of the services really being provided in that facility. So this is more about maintaining capacity than expanding. And then for St. John's Center, you know, St. John's Centers, ultimately they're serving people who are either street homeless or in overnight shelters, trying to work with them and ultimately help them to get rehoused. Now, we can't specify a specific number of people that will be housed, but if St. John's Center, you know, due to the increased friction that they've been having due to safety issues, you know, if they began to feel that the location was not safe for volunteers or for guests, then that would diminish their ability to serve the homeless and get those people ultimately rehoused. So I would say that's also about maintaining current capacity. So really the only expansion in capacity would be those additional units that Marilyn just specified. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bates. Before we move into the committee report outs, I just want to remind anyone that's interested in joining any other committees, please feel free to send your email address and name or contact information for the committee that of your interest as well. We're encouraging everyone to get involved and join the committees, please. As you may have seen on your agendas, and Natalie mentioned, several people on vacation, so we will call out the committees and see if there's a representative, and we'll move from there. With community outreach, is there anyone here for an update with the community outreach?
Darren, I'm still here.
Hi.
Hi, you can go to the next slide, I guess.
Community reports are not in the slides, Erin.
Oh, sorry. I thought I sent you information to add to slides. Let me pull that up. Sorry, if you want to go to the next committee while I do that, that's fine.
Will do. Aging and unsheltered, Sarah Teeters, our Ally on the call. You may be on mute if you are on the call. Well, let's move forward with low barrier shelter. Is anyone on the call for low barrier shelter?
I actually have my updates pulled up on if I can go ahead and give the outreach committee updates if you don't mind.
Yes, go ahead,
Um,
Erin. Thank you.
So just to let you all know, our committee continues to meet every other Monday at 10 a.m. Right now, we have over 60 different members that either come to the meetings or are on the email list. We've had a little bit of a change in kind of the leadership co-chairs. So pretty much right now, the two co-chairs are going to be representatives from St. John Center, so either TJ Martin or Mary Luke Noonan, and Phoenix Family Health Centers, so either Carrie Addison or Jeff Elmore. So they're going to kind of be tag teaming this committee going forward. We have moved to kind of a more structured agenda for each meeting, just to kind of keep everyone on track and make sure that, you know, we're associating action items with each client that we're discussing. So we're going to start reviewing clients that have been referred to housing programs since our last meeting. So that could be like who needs to be connected to which different housing program and which outreach worker could assist with making sure, like Tiny said, those warm handoffs. We've also started talking about like the most challenging clients that each outreach team has. And we hope to start talking a little bit more about like the 5 highest utilizers at each shelter and also the top 10 clients that have the longest length of time homeless. And that's pretty much it for our committee. Thanks.
Thank you, Erin. Is there anyone on the call for low barrier shelter?
I can, unless there's somebody else who is at the committee meetings, I'm happy to report on that because I have Jennifer's report, who is on vacation.
Great, go ahead, Nat.
So I'll let people know the main topic of the low barrier committee recently has been on the number of bans and bars from shelters. I don't know how many of these people are still in the homeless system, you know, either on the streets, in shelter, or someplace else. But there were at least 400 people who were either barred or banned from at least one shelter on the list. And the majority of those, I think 3/4 of those, were for people who were not compliant with a program, not for something that had to do with violence or you know, something that would be detrimental to other people. So the committee is working on trying to come up with a more consistent and equitable system for banning and barring people from facilities, and a way for people to be able to overcome those bars and bans, especially looking at it through a racial equity lens. They are also trying to figure out, are there, can they coordinate that system with, there has been a suggestion that has come through the mayor's task force on homelessness to create an ombudsman who could look at complaints and issues with shelters and programs. And so they're looking to see, can those two systems be integrated? And then finally, for anybody who would like to join this committee and is really interested in this topic of how do we make sure that people can safely use low barrier facilities within the city, their next meeting is August 9th at 2:30.
Thank you, Natalie.
Sure.
The communications committee, is there someone with an update?
I'm not sure they have met. Does anybody know?
Okay. Well, I do know mental health and substance abuse has not started, and we're still looking for anyone to join. So if that's your interest, please send your contact information and your intent to join in the chat. The last one is affordable housing. Merlin, are you on the call? Yes, you were earlier. Merlin may have jumped off the call. Is there anybody else on the affordable housing? Okay.
I was gonna say, I do know, there was a meeting yesterday, with the housing department, talking to nonprofits about funding that will be coming through the city, um, to help with housing. There's at least $10 million already allocated, through the home program that will go through Maryland's office. And that is targeted to the homeless and very lowest income people. There is also $10 million through the budget that we hope will be approved, tonight, that will go to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And they are looking to designate at least 25% of that money to, house people who are below 30% of area median income. And so we are, also advocating, and, I will, just reach out to people who are on the call today. There is a portal on the city website, where you can, make your recommendations for how you think it would be best to use city funds. We are encouraging people to, list any of the things that you think are really important and needed to help our city come back from COVID, and to include housing as one of those. So, those are the housing things that I know at this point.
Thank you, Natalie. We'll move on to next steps in the Hopper item. Any questions that were placed in the chat or any areas of interest from anyone in the community that you would like to see in the meeting, discuss any of the processes, we encourage you all to just send a chat of your interest, what you would like to be educated on, or just repeated information. Is just to educate the community on what we're doing. And of course, we will always commit to providing those updates to everyone. At this point, we'll move over to the chat to see if there's any questions there that we have not answered. I don't see any questions in the chat. I do thank everyone who has submitted so far. Their interest in joining the committees and their contact information. Someone will reach out to you. And I just want to say thanks everyone for taking time out to join us today. Well, hold on, Mr. Goldman, there is a question here. Let me go back up. Are there currently plans to address the identified gaps in supportive housing for people with behavioral health needs? Natalie?
I was gonna say, there may be people who want, from St. John Center that want to, add, additional information here. They did do a presentation. I totally agree with Benjamin Goldman. I do think we need, this, type of service, and it's definitely been identified both in the homeless plan that the city coordinated and through providers throughout the city. We are seeing people who have been housed through supportive housing and are unable to be successful because they aren't able to get the level of supports they need, with, just living in the community and, limited services. And so, St. John's Center did an amazing, study with additional information about what those highest needs were, which was presented to the community a few weeks back, and are looking to try to meet that need with a project, in this coming year. Is there anybody from St. John's who has more information to share or wants to tell people how to get a copy of that study?
This is TJ. So I know what I'll do is if you send me your if anyone wants to send me their email in the chat, I will get with Mary Luke. It was Mary Luke and Sarah Buckler who actually presented that, and so I can reach out to them and get you the information.
One other thing I'd like to offer is if there is anyone, either on this call or that you know of that's not on this call, that is really interested in doing, some type of housing for any homeless population, please let me know, especially if you are a service provider and you are looking for a housing developer to be a partner, or if you're a housing developer and you're looking for a service provider who could provide the services for the tenants of those properties. But we're really trying to make sure that we have those partnerships so that we can have really solid projects to go to the city and show not only the need, but also that there are strong partners in the community who could actually develop these units with the funding that will be made available to the city.
I don't see any other questions, but I will remind everyone, we will send the slides out to those that are on the distribution list. And again, I just want to say thank you to everyone, and you all have a great day and enjoy the good weather out there. Thank you, everyone. The meeting's adjourned.